How good can this Buffalo Bills offensive line be in front of Josh Allen in 2024? I'm exploring all of those dynamics today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, folks, welcome in. I want to have an offensive line discussion here today on the podcast and really explore the dynamics for this unit entering the season. And so we're going to get into all of it, a loaded podcast for you here today. So let's just jump right in. I want to begin this conversation by talking about what excites me about this unit. And I start that conversation by pointing back to 2023. This was a good offensive line. And I want to give you a couple metrics here that support my claim that this was a very good offensive line. The first one comes courtesy of the Fantasy Points data suite. Last season, the Bills' offensive line generated 2.07 adjusted yards before contact per rushing attempt, third highest in the NFL. So before a Buffalo Bills ball carrier was touched, they already gained over 2 yards, third highest in the NFL. And I love that Fantasy Points breaks this down as adjusted yards before contact, because that removes scrambles, that removes trick plays, it removes quarterback kneels and quarterback sneaks. It is a true number. Only 5 teams last year averaged above 2 yards before contact: the Ravens, Eagles, Bills, Bears, and Dolphins. I'll give you another number here. So run blocking, cool, that's great. What about pass blocking? Super good there as well. And PFF's pass blocking efficiency metric, which measures pressure allowed on a per snap basis with weighting towards sacks allowed, the Bills' pass blocking efficiency was 86.4, fifth best in the NFL. The Bills' offensive line allowed 13 sacks, fewest in the NFL. That's sacks charged to the offensive line. It was their fault. And how about this one? 73.7% of the pressure Josh Allen faced in 2023 was due to the offensive line, third lowest percentage in the NFL. So if you want to poo-poo on my pass blocking numbers here because you say that Josh Allen avoids pressure and doesn't let pressure turn into sacks, well, how about those apples? The third lowest percentage of pressure that he faced of any quarterback in the NFL was actually the fault of the offensive line. The unit was really good. It took a major step forward last season. And I think you ask yourself why, and certainly there's a lot to point to in terms of the players they had, but how about the coaching? Aaron Kromer, in his second season, you saw notable growth, and that's what gets me very excited about 2024 is it's year 3 of Aaron Kromer, who's an exceptional offensive line coach, an unbelievable resume, one of the best position coaches of our era of football. And he's heavily involved with scheming the run game, scheming protection schemes, and of course, working one-on-one with these offensive linemen. And you see a guy like Dion Dawkins at left tackle, who's playing the best football of his career under Aaron Kromer. He's entering his age 30 season, has made the last 3 Pro Bowls. And Dion Dawkins is a complete football player. He has everything: length, athleticism, power, personality, leadership, right? Last couple of years, he's been the Bills' Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner. I mean, he's a dude. He's entering his 8th season as the Bills starter. And he just signed a 3-year extension that keeps him in Buffalo through 2027. He's a cornerstone player. You can see the improvements that he's made with Aaron Kromer. Now he gets a 3rd season. How about Spencer Brown at right tackle? We saw the big leap that so many were hoping for, so many doubted would happen in his 2nd season with Aaron Kromer. And there's so much to like about Spencer Brown as you project him to the future, given the tools, right? All the size and athleticism you could ever dream of in an offensive tackle. He's got it. And he's clearly an ascending player that entered the NFL with only 2 years of experience playing offensive line, and he did it at the FCS level. Now he's entering his age 26 season in a contract year. Now, if there's something that makes me pump the brakes just a little bit with Spencer Brown, it's that he once again can't have a normal offseason because he had an injury. He had a shoulder injury early in that Chiefs playoff game. He played through it, but has had a surgery, and that's really taken away from his normal offseason routine. So that's a little bit concerning, but I'm hopeful that Spencer Brown can build off of his breakout season from 2023. And then I'll point out one more player, just as you kind of look at this through that Aaron Kromer lens and the opportunity to continue working with him. It's O'Cyrus Torrence. O'Cyrus Torrence, a 2023 second-round pick, did a lot as a rookie. And I think that starts with beating out Ryan Bates. You know, the Bills don't hand anybody anything. And they paid Ryan Bates a decent contract extension to stick in Buffalo. They draft O'Cyrus Torrence. He beats him out as a rookie. Played every single snap, every single offensive snap. And did he have some highs and lows? Sure. Yeah, he's a rookie, and you felt like some of the pass protection issues definitely happened down the stretch, but take a step back and just assess the entire season. The guy was really good as a rookie. 24 years old. And I think the step forward that he could take from year 1 to year 2 is going to be very significant. I look at him and I look at Dalton Kincaid as impact rookies that I think can take a step forward in year 2. And I think in the case of O'Cyrus Torrence, I think it's how his offseason is going to set up. I always talk about that rookie year offseason, how weird it is and how taxing it is on these guys. Then they have to play just an extremely high amount of snaps compared to any other year of their football career, and they're doing it in the NFL against the best players in the world. It's a big deal. I think not only will O'Cyrus Torrence be better equipped for his 2nd season because he's played a year, but now he gets to spend his offseason focusing on being the right guard for the Buffalo Bills, not focusing on how to run a short shuttle drill and how to interview and, you know, flying all across the country doing workouts. No, it's just, hey, going to be the right guard for the Buffalo Bills. What do I need to do this offseason to prepare for that? I think the step forward could be really significant. And again, some highs and lows as a rookie, but the overall picture is pretty good as it relates to O'Cyrus Torrence, what he did, and that forecast moving forward. So there's a lot to be excited about. That's just kind of the start of the conversation with how good they were last year, Aaron Kromer and the coach that he is, and more time with this group. You know, and Aaron Kromer is the type of offensive line coach that's going to, and he says this out loud. It's not something I'm making up. I mean, he says, look, I tailor how I coach to every individual player with their techniques, and he's always trying to tweak and find different ways for them to improve. And he's even said openly that, look, guys could struggle initially when they work with me because we do kind of change some things up. But if they trust me, you know, they're going to eventually take those steps. I think you've seen that happen in Buffalo. And so now he's got his fingerprints even more on the run scheme, the pass protection, and the player development. Really excited for his 3rd season with this offensive line. All right, there's way more I want to get to. I want to get to some developing depth players on the other side of it, a lot of those, and some veteran hedges, the X factor for this group. Plenty to get to, so be sure to stick with me. Folks, the NFL schedule is out. The Bills have so many big games, and I'm sure you want to get to some of those. Well, if you do, you got to download the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have amazing last-minute ticket specials. They give you flash deals when you go into the app. It's easy to navigate. They give you a seat view so you can look and see, all right, what's it going to look like when I get into my seat? But my favorite thing is the all-in pricing. They give you the total price from the beginning of the purchase. No surprise fees coming at the end. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's keep talking about what makes me excited for this offensive line in 2024, and it is the developing depth. I think you can point to 3 young players that kind of out of nowhere have carved out a little role for themselves, and I'm excited to see how it expands in 2024. Ryan Vandemark's the first guy that I want to mention. Really cool story here. Toolsy player coming out of college. The Bills got their hands on him. He spent a year on the practice squad, and then last season at training camp, he really caught my eye. And if you were part of our conversations last year during preseason, I became more and more impressed with him on a weekly basis. And then he ends up winning a job, right? He gets rostered. He's the swing tackle all season long. He's dresses as an active player, first off the bench at right and left tackle. And so after 1 year on the practice squad, he develops into your literal first guy off the bench at tackle. Super toolsy guy, has size, length, athleticism for days. And so now he's back, right? And I mean, it's his job to lose, in my opinion, to be the swing tackle once again. I'm excited to see how he develops. You think about that leap from year 1 to year 2 for him. Year 2 to year 3 could be even bigger. And I'm excited to watch him again in camp in preseason and see how he continues his trajectory as a young player. I think you can apply everything that I just said about Ryan Vandemark to Alec Anderson. Very similar. Spent 2022 on the practice squad, earned a roster spot in 2023 as a depth player. You saw like the year-over-year growth from Anderson in preseason was huge, in my opinion. And through playing well in preseason, he's also played well at a bunch of different spots. So far in 2 preseasons, Alec Anderson has 78 snaps at left tackle, 25 at left guard, 59 at center, 42 at right guard, and 33 at right tackle. I mean, that's insane. That's literally all 5 spots. That versatility is going to keep him in the league for a long time. And so I think he's right back in that position where, he can be the Ryan Bates for this unit moving forward. I love the trajectory that he's on as a player. And so you've seen that happen for both Vandemark and Anderson, practice squad to the active roster. Now here's year 3. But my question is, and this is a good question, is Richard Gouriage the next guy that has the same arc? Richard Gouriage, a 2023 undrafted free agent out of Florida, had good tape at Florida, was very impressive at the Senior Bowl. I remember being on the field at that 2023 Senior Bowl, watching O-line, D-line, one-on-one reps. That's where you can always find me. And Richard Gouriage held his own. The story with Richard Gouriage is that he just kind of lacks tools. Not super big, really poor athlete. I mean, a 1.52 RAS score, which is super low, but he could play. I mean, you saw that at Florida. You saw that at the Senior Bowl. I saw that during training camp in preseason games last year. But I think the big thing for Gouriage is going to be the versatility. You probably don't think of him much as a versatile player, but you should. He only played offensive tackle last season during the preseason, but we do know that from the reports coming out of OTAs that he did get opportunities to play guard this year. And in college, he played a lot of guard. So his time at Florida, 1,700 snaps at tackle, 1,100 snaps, really 1,200 snaps at guard. So that him tapping into that versatility, particularly playing on the inside, I think is going to help him as a guy that doesn't necessarily have a tackle body, but certainly doesn't have tackle athleticism. This could be a really good move for him. And one thing that Aaron Kromer does, if you're going to play guard, you got to, he tests you out at center and see if you can snap. You talk about just continuing to check boxes. I'm interested here. So big camp and preseason for Richard Gouriage to potentially be the next guy in this practice squad to the roster pipeline to give this Bills team more and more offensive line depth. So talked about 3 starters that I'm pretty pumped up about, 3 backups that I'm really keeping an eye on as young guys that are on a nice little path. But then the Bills added even more through the draft. The Bills drafted 3 offensive linemen. 30% of their draft picks were offensive linemen. Now, they're later round picks, but there's a lot of appeal with each and every one of them. We'll start with their 6th round pick, Tylan Grable out of UCF. He's a guy that played basketball and football in high school, but when he played football, he played quarterback, play offensive line. So he's a no-star recruit. He winds up breaking his foot his final season in high school. He's only got like Division II offers. He walks on at Jacksonville State and transitions from quarterback to tight end. Then in his 2nd season at Jacksonville State, he moves to offensive line, winds up starting at tackle. Then he transfers to UCF. He plays there for 2 seasons and has 27 starts at left tackle for UCF. Didn't allow a sack in 2023, 6'5", 306, over 33-inch arms, 10 1/8-inch hands, ran a 4.95, 40-yard dash. His RAS score is a 9.78, which is outstanding. So size, athleticism, untapped potential. Now his tape's rough. I didn't love it. I watched him play at UCF after the Bills drafted him, and I thought, he needed a lot of work, but what a great opportunity for him to come to Buffalo, work with Aaron Kromer, who has a great history with Spencer Brown, with Ryan Vandemark, of being able to develop athletes. And of course, I'm just talking about his Buffalo career. Aaron Kromer, his time with Chicago, his time with the Saints, his first stint in Buffalo, his time with the Raiders. This guy's got an unbelievable track record. And here's a ball of clay here that has tons of untapped potential to tap into. Speaking of untapped potential, how about the Bills' 7th round pick, Travis Clayton, from the International Pathway Program, a rugby player, right? No idea if this guy could play in the NFL, but he is 6'7", 303 with 35-inch arms, 10-inch hands, and ran a 4.79. Background in boxing and tennis and rugby. We'll see. He gets an opportunity to be exempt on the roster, so the Bills will be able to keep 17 players on their practice squad, which is one more than the rest of the league because of Travis Clayton. So it's going to be a slow burn here, but talk about a ball of clay. He's 23 years old with that type of size and athleticism. I'm sure Aaron Kromer is quite excited about that opportunity. So plenty of young, intriguing offensive linemen. This isn't just a bunch of replacement level bums, right? Like I've studied the entire NFL. I've graded every single player in the NFL this offseason. I've studied the offensive line depth across the league. And you look at a lot of teams and their offensive line depth is just, candidly, just a bunch of slugs. Guys that they're toast. If those guys have to play, it's not good. And we're talking about Bills' 10th, 11th, 12th offensive lineman here. There's a lot of good stuff going on. And, oh, by the way, there are some very intriguing veteran hedges that exist. So the reality of everything that I just said about Ryan Vandemark and Alec Anderson and Richard Gouriage and Travis Clayton and Tylan Grable, they all sound interesting, but we really don't know how good they are. There's a lot of good trajectory and all that, but none of them have really played in the NFL. Well, how about that Brandon Beane? He's got some veteran hedges with depth players on the offensive line that have played in the NFL. How about Will Clapp? The Bills signed him. Very experienced and functional reserve player. 65 games in the NFL, 21 starts. Started, almost the majority of the season for the Chargers last year at center. Plenty of time at left guard. Has served that jumbo tight end role in the past. And, he's a functional reserve. I think he has an uphill climb to make the roster, but an experienced functional reserve. Now, one thing that's notable with him is that he signed a 1-year, $1.1 million contract. Only $212,000 of that is guaranteed. That's not a good indicator, right? Sometimes when you try to figure out what decisions teams are going to make on who to start or who to keep on the roster and who not to keep, follow the money. Well, you don't follow the money to Will Clapp and feel, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to make it. But you do look at Lyle Collins, the other veteran hedge, if you will. And he signed a 1-year, $1.75 million deal. $1.5 million of that is guaranteed. Follow the money. That probably tells you Lyle Collins is going to make the roster. Now, if he stinks and he can't move anymore and the injuries have caught up with him, well, yeah, then he's not. The Bills will take the L and not keep him. But you kind of follow the money here and you feel like there's a chance. And Lyle Collins has been a good starter in the NFL. 31 years old. He started 86 games. Almost all of that, nearly 5,000 career snaps at right tackle, almost 900 at left guard. And he presents the Bills with an option that I think could play backup right tackle and potentially be a backup at guard. And what's interesting about Ryan Vandemark is, in all of my exposures to him, way better left tackle than he is right tackle. Well, here's Lyle Collins, who's never played left tackle, but has been a good right tackle in the NFL. So you kind of balance that out a little bit. So I'm pretty excited about that. All right. I have so much more to get to. I want to talk about the X factor for this offensive line, and I want to talk about my questions. And, of course, we'll get into that transition of David Edwards and Conor McGovern going over to center. A lot more to get to. Folks, stick with me. All right, this is one of those episodes where the way that I plan the show doesn't align because I'm saying more than I anticipated. So we're playing a little catch up here in the third segment, but I want to get to the X factor of this offensive line. And that's, to me, and you've heard me talk about this guy a lot, Sedrick Van Pran Granger. He's the X factor of this offensive line. 5th round draft pick out of Georgia, 22 years old, was a big high school recruit, could have went wherever he wanted. He goes to Georgia, starts 44 games, a 2-time captain at Georgia, and just watch him play. Watch his tape at Georgia. He's a good player. Like, you watch him play and he just doesn't lose battles. Just very consistent. The way he executes, the way he wins on a snap-to-snap basis. Doesn't lose reps. Good power, good body control. Understands angles. Very high-end pass protector. In over 1,400 pass blocking snaps in college, he allowed 1 sack and 34 pressures. That's amazing. High effort guy, leader. I guess your question with him, and this is a question that some people have, and I'm going to try right now to tell you that it shouldn't be a question. The reality is he's only played center, right? All of those games, all 44 of those games, every snap has come at center. So he needs to prove his versatility, but he's not a center only. I can tell you that the team does not view him as a center only. He's going to get chances to play guard. And I said this on Herd Mentality, the last episode of Herd Mentality. But Aaron Kromer, you look at Sedrick Van Pran, you might say his measurables tell you that he's a center. Aaron Kromer, when he was with the Rams, he played Austin Blythe at guard. 1,800 snaps, over 1,800 snaps in 4 seasons. Austin Blythe is 6'2", 291 with 30 and a quarter inch arms. 6'2", 291 with 30 and a quarter inch arms. Sedrick Van Pran Granger is 6'4", 298 with 31 and 3/8 on the arms. And he's got power. And that's really the leading body type matters, but the leading reason that you'd probably put a guy at center over guard, assuming they could snap, is because you're concerned about their anchor and their power. And at center, you're less likely to have a body right on top of you as opposed to guard. He's going to get chances to play guard, and I think there could be a path for him. I don't know if that's this year, but maybe next year, to be the starting left guard, to really challenge David Edwards for that job. Don't be surprised when Sedrick Van Pran Granger forces the issue and gets into the starting lineup at some point over the next couple of years. So a lot to be excited about. A lot. We're 24 minutes into this conversation, and I haven't even gotten to my questions. But we will get into the questions right now. And I think the leading question with the Bills' offensive line is, hey, everything you said is great. The unit was really good, but we're making a big transition. A huge one, right? Mitch Morse, bye-bye. Ryan Bates, bye-bye. Conor McGovern, you're going over to center. David Edwards, you're the projected starter at left guard. We have to see it play out, right? We got to see that happen. But if you do listen to Conor McGovern talk about playing center, the young man lights up. I actually have a clip for you from his media availability during OTAs of him discussing that move over to center. So let's go ahead and play that right now.
last year it helped Mitch a lot, like with the calls, but at the end of the day it was his show to run, and now it's mine, and I just love that extra like weight on my shoulder to do that, and just got to be the tip of the spear. I would say center is my natural position, so it's just going back home.
Yes, how much did you miss?
I missed it a lot, honestly. So I got drafted as a center originally, and then new coaching staff came in, I got moved to guard, and always kind of seek my way back to center. Every time something happened, play a little bit, and then always went back to guard. Now officially I could move back to center permanently for right now, so I'm very happy.
What makes you love it?
Yeah. That's what I always grew up. So I was actually, hard to believe, but I was actually undersized growing up, like in high school. Surprisingly, so I was always a center because I was usually the smallest one. And then once I hit my growth spurt finally, I just stayed at center, went to Penn State as center, moved to guard, then went back to center. And it was just always something natural. Like I always liked being the guy right in the middle, and it was always comfortable to me.
Dude's pretty excited, right? Now, it needs to come together, right? We got to see it happen. I feel pretty good about it. He's confident. And the Bills made a choice here. That's what I keep going back to with this entire situation. They made a choice. They didn't have to do this. They didn't have to cut Mitch Morse. They didn't have to trade Ryan Bates. They chose to do it, presumably because they like this idea. And they didn't make that choice because they woke up one day, Brandon Beane said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to get worse at center and left guard. Right? There was intentionality behind this. And so it's really cool to see Conor McGovern's energy towards this. Again, we got to see it happen. It's got to come together. So that's like part one of the transition, and I feel good about that. The other part is David Edwards playing left guard, and David Edwards came over last season, had a great year as like utility jumbo tight end blocker, was awesome. And now he's going to have that opportunity to be the starting left guard. And he's been a starter. He's a 3-year starter to start his career with the Rams. And, of course, Aaron Kromer being part of that coaching staff when they drafted him, and he coached him for his first few seasons there. And you felt like David Edwards was on a great path, and then he kind of had some injury stuff. And the reality is he's only started 4 games over the last 2 seasons. So this is a big opportunity for him. Hopefully it comes together and he performs. A couple other things here. Offensive line health from 2023. The Bills were really healthy. I mean, it's very rare to have all 5 starters play every single game. And that's what the Bills enjoyed last year. That continuity matters a ton. Some teams experienced major transition. I mean, a lot of teams. Look at teams in the Bills' own division, whether it's the Patriots, Jets, or Dolphins. Those teams are cycling offensive linemen in left and right. I mean, it happens across the league. The Bills were very fortunate when it comes to offensive line health. Knock on wood, that continues. The next thing I want to bring up is who will be the next David Edwards. This utility jumbo tight end role has definitely been a thing for this football team. You go back to Tommy Doyle, Bobby Hart, David Edwards, of course. Like this is a thing. Who's that going to be? Will Clapp has experience doing that, but is he going to make the team? Lyle Collins, Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandemark, Richard Gouriage, Sedrick Van Pran Granger. Like, who's it going to be? Because it's an important role for this offense. And then the last thing is, who's going to make this roster? I think you have space to roster 9 offensive linemen. Your 5 starters, Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrence, and Brown. I'm going to add Sedrick Van Pran Granger to that list because I think those are the 6 roster locks, barring injury, of course. So then you have 3 spots available. And I think the most likely people that are going to make it out of the depth for those last 3 spots is Ryan Vandemark, Alec Anderson, and Lyle Collins. But Will Clapp, Richard Gouriage, Tylan Grable, they're around as well. So you have just great competition, good mix of youth, veterans, athleticism, power, great offensive line coach. So while you could take a second and look at last year's group and recognize some differences and, get a little bit down about that, there's still plenty to be excited about with this offensive line. And I expect it to continue to perform at a high level like it did last year and maybe even be better, right? Spencer Brown, still developing. Dion Dawkins just had the best season of his career. We'll see what McGovern can do at center. Osiris Torrence in year 2. A lot to be excited about with this offensive line. Really top to bottom. And I hope that's what you gained from listening to this episode. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.